All right, and we are live with another episode of Glowjoy's Everything Construction Corner. I'm here with Matt Graves, aka Mr. Construction Yeti. How you doing today, Matt?
What's up, Gloria? I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain. I am finally back in New York after traveling for a little bit over a week. So yeah, super excited to sit down and spend a Friday afternoon with you. How about
Yeah,
you?
I'm good. It's Friday. It's been a long. We've had a stomach bug go through our house at home, so it's been fun. It's been a fun couple weeks.
Well, right off the bat, I know that I know a little bit about you, and excited to share you with my network. So, why don't you introduce yourself to the people and let the folks know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a construction project manager, I guess by trade. I've A few years ago I started Construction Yeti, which was a it started off as a blog and it was meant to be kind of a resource like from a
Hmm.
construction guy for the construction industry. I had to kind of self teach myself a lot of stuff as I got into the industry because I worked for a real small contractor and I was Googling what's a submittal, what's an RFI, those sort of things,
Hmm.
like how do schedules work and whatever. So, a lot of stuff on Google. Once you start finding articles and you read it, you're like, man, whoever wrote this doesn't know what they're talking about, right? They're just writing an SEO article to get with a website on the blog or website
With
on
the
Google.
with the right keywords, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the initial genesis of it. Was a blog, and then it's evolved into a weekly newsletter.
Hmm.
I really like memes and gifs, and so I try to make it lighthearted and short bites, and try to be insightful. And if you don't learn something, hopefully you at least maybe smile. I send them out Saturday mornings, so I don't think anybody wants to read a white paper on Saturday morning about construction. And so,
No, probably not. Probably not. And it's lighthearted enough that if you like some of us work in commercials, so if we are working on a job on a Saturday, we could take a nice little break, have some coffee, and giggle about it. And that's, I think, one of the things that I really enjoy about your content is that you're using obviously the power of humor to, talk about topics that are not really comfortable to talk about, you know, and sometimes might rub people the wrong way. And it's okay for you to be a project manager at a small company and not know what an RFI is or a
mhm.
submittal or how to read a set of plans, even. I came from a background in real estate and I knew how to read plans, but I didn't really know how to read plans. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So actually learning to go through the notes and read the notes and check for discrepancies
Mhm.
on different pages. And that's one of the things that I really had to learn in project management was to look at different versions of the plans, the engineering plans versus the arch set,
Mhm.
and looking for the different discrepancies, if any, which a lot of times there's a ton. I say if any because we don't want to offend the architects and engineers that are listening. But so why humor? Why the newsletter? I mean, you probably already have enough to do with everything at work and your personal life. So why the construction Yeti? Why take the time to do all of this research and do all of this work?
Yeah.
Extra work, extra work.
When I first started it, I started the blog because it was one, I wanted to like kind of give back to the industry a little bit, right? I was wanting to kind of create a
Hmm.
resource, but two was like maybe this thing will blow up and I'll get a million users and I can put ads on it and I can make a little bit of money on the side, make it a little side project, right?
Hmm.
I put ads on the website and they like took over like a virus, and so it's very spammy looking right now. So don't go to constructionyeti.com because I'm embarrassed by what it looks like. I'm nuking
Okay.
it and rebuilding it. Um,
Okay.
but that was kind of the idea, was to make a little side hustle, right? And then that was even kind of when I relaunched the newsletter, into a newsletter on the Substack.
Hmm.
um, Jesse, seeing him in the comments over here.
Yeah, he's like, I'm trying not to laugh. He says he's doing it for the gram. Jesse, we appreciate you being here.
So you done messed me up. So when I went over to the newsletter, it was kind of the same thing, right? It was going to be kind of like I wanted to help out, but also it was like a side hustle. Like maybe I can grow this thing up and make some money with it. But one thing I
Hmm.
didn't realize when I started doing that was like I was just going to meet like so many interesting people, like Jesse. Like I got to be real good buddies with Jesse. Like I met you, and we've got to be friends through all this sort of stuff.
Right.
Just started the newsletter. Then I went to LinkedIn to start to like promote it and sell it. It's a free subscription, right? But like you still got to sell something if you're trying to get it out there. And so
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything is sales. People
always,
don't realize it. Even being a site superintendent and selling the daily task list to the field is a sale, So, yeah.
so yeah, but I mean, just the network I've built
hmm
through this whole journey has just been like awesome. Like I feel like I've got, a connection or a friend that like I can call on for like any question I have about anything, right?
Right.
So it's that's been cool.
So tell me why you chose Substack. There's a lot of platforms out there, and you could have opted to be some famous YouTuber or here on LinkedIn. Why the Substack? I mean, I don't think a lot of people even use Substack. It's mostly journalists from
Mhm.
what I know.
Yeah, I think I subscribed to one or two people that were on there putting stuff
hmm
out, and then I went and looked at it, and I was wanting to do something similar,
hmm
and it was free. Like there's other ones where you got to pay money to do it, and I was like, man, this is just a hobby. Like I don't want to go pay money to do
hmm
something. And so it was one, it was free. Two, it had what I needed, and I didn't know what I was doing, so I just started.
Right.
And that's kind of what Jesse's taught me, right? Is like just do the damn thing. And so I just
Right.
eventually went and signed up for it, stopped thinking about it, signed up for it, and I put out a LinkedIn post one day, a year and a half ago that said, "Hey, I'm starting this newsletter. Here's the link. Go sign up if you want to sign up." And I was terrified. Like
That
that
was
was like
only a year and a half ago.
a year and 9 months ago, maybe. It was June of 22.
So I'm an early adopter and subscriber of this thing then.
We're still in the early innings, hopefully.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Very
It was
cool.
like 87 weeks ago, so do the math, whatever that is.
Okay. No, I turned off math at about an hour ago when I decided that we were going to do this podcast at 3 o'clock. No more math.
So
Yeah,
it's not quite 2 years, whatever.
not quite 2 years yet. Very cool. So, your newsletter covers tons of topics, right? You are a construction project manager by trade.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about how you got into the construction industry to begin with.
I first started out working for my dad, like in high school.
Okay.
He did underground utility install, like fiber optics,
Okay.
directional boring and trenching, that sort of stuff.
hmm
And so, being whatever I was, 16 years old, I basically operated a shovel behind a backhoe. Like some guy was on
Okay.
the backhoe digging, and I was potholing, make sure he didn't hit any utilities and that sort of stuff. And we hit some stuff because trusting the 16-year-old to handle that. So that was kind of my start. And then one summer, I him and his business partner bought a house, and we spent all summer like basically remodeling his house to flip it.
Right.
And so I learned like a whole bunch. Like we roofed it, we retiled it, we painted. We did everything. And so that kind of got me a taste of that. And actually, I went into college doing civil engineering because I wanted to be a custom home builder. Like in
Okay.
hindsight, like that makes no sense. But that was my mindset when I was like 18 years old.
Right. But, we don't know what we don't know.
Exactly. And like, my parents never went to college, and it's like they didn't know what they didn't know, and so it sounded good.
Okay.
So that was kind of the start, anyway.
So I know that you don't build custom homes right now. Is there any plan for the future to maybe do any type of development or move into that role? I mean,
Doubtful. Now I'm doing commercial, and I realize like residential is a lot more emotional. And like,
oh my gosh, yes. Can we say that one more time?
everybody I talk to that is in residential, that does residential and commercial, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do residential because it's just a lot more emotions involved. And they're like, yes, if I could do all commercial, I would. But
Yeah, that was the reaction I would get when I met people at the builder show this past week.
Hmm.
They would ask about our projects, and I would say, "Hey, we mostly do commercial. I don't do any residential unless it's a multifamily and there's like a residential component. And then even then, like I've learned to just hire another project manager that kind of specializes on in that side of the
Yeah.
project because I don't like residential. It's too emotional. And people, they think they know things because they watch television shows or a favorite YouTube channel or
Hmm.
influencer on, an Instagram or a TikTok. And the reality is that they know nothing, or very little and are trying to project manage their own project or micromanage the project management
Hmm.
of a project, when in reality, they're just dragging it out. And of course, that's my unique experience, and others have their experience with the residential industry and love it. I just spent days with thousands of those people, and I'm like, good for you, because we need custom home builders. But yeah, it's definitely not me.
It's just a different ball game.
Hmm.
Like I've never done residential, but I've seen residential people come to commercial, and just the way it operates, just the processes and the way that the submittals work, and just the formality in it. A
Right.
lot of times that doesn't transfer for them, and so
It
it's just
sure does not. It sure does not. Do you think that it's a lack of education or
I,
what?
I think it's just everyone assumes it's the same thing, but it's
Mhm,
just, I mean, they're different animals.
mhm.
At the end of the day, that's my thoughts anyway. Is everyone's like, well, if you can build a house, you can build a office building, or whatever. But there's just a lot more processes, procedures, formalities in the commercial world than I think that happens in the residential world. I think they still probably, and I'm speaking ignorantly here because I've never built a house, obviously. Never,
Mhm.
like, the first house we bought was a brand new build, but we didn't go through the process. It was sitting in inventory. So I don't even know what it's like, but it's my understanding.
Right.
But I think it's less, it's more informal. That's what I'm trying to say,
You're actually absolutely correct. I've recently partnered with a project management software tool, and I had the honor of being one of the pros at their booth this past week at the show, and got to meet some other folks that do
Yep.
do this residential stuff. And the process of even utilizing the word submittal is foreign to a lot of the residential
Hmm.
builders. They know what it is. It's selection, and there's a whole approval process that goes through with it, and they do the submittals, but it's not even a part of the language in most cases.
Right.
Same thing with RFIs and other formal terms that I had to learn, you all had to learn, when doing this. And so it's a different world, but it isn't. And I think having conversations like this, where construction managers and project managers from different arenas can, you know, talk about how similar the process is and what the need is to have
Hmm.
all these little details, because that's what it is. It's we need these details in the process. And if you are a residential builder or a commercial builder, because I deal with a lot of commercial people who don't even do any of their like submittal. What's that? We have a contract with the GC. We're just going to assume the GC is going to build what the GC said they're going to build, right?
Hmm.
And that's usually not the case. It's just a quality control. And that's what the submittal is for.
Exactly. I've seen people say, "Well, we'll send in the submittals as an FYI after the fact." Like,
Right,
doesn't
right.
exactly work that way.
Yeah. And, Jesse brings up a good point. He's saying, it's a different caliber of customer. Homeowner isn't going to require a P6 schedule. And, some people don't even know what that is. And that's
Mhm.
okay. You know?
I mean, a lot of that is they don't know what they don't know, right? And they don't really, I mean, project management is a trade. Like I say, my trade is project management, right? Like I didn't go to
Absolutely.
trade school necessarily. I guess I sort of did through college, but it's just a, it is a trade, and like you got to know. I mean, even if you gave a a homeowner a P6 schedule, like are they gonna even know how to read it?
Right.
Like float. What does that mean? And like they can understand like a Gantt chart, like a bar line chart, right, and kind of
Right.
see how it goes and kind of. But yeah, no, it's definitely a different caliber of customers, I think.
It is. It is. And I think even within commercial, you have different caliber of customers, right? It depends on the niche. It depends on the type of commercial project that you're
Yeah.
working with. I feel like people in heavy equipment and the exterior and infrastructure work, oil and gas, operate very differently than,
Hmm.
the multifamily and high rise builder or strip mall builder
Yeah.
or whatever. So there's even within commercial, there's different arenas, and even within residential, there's different arenas, and so many others, industrial, and so on and so forth. So for the folks that I wanted to ask you this, because you're pretty young and you worked with your dad. You're clearly not working with your dad anymore. You're doing something else. And he said, "Are you guys live from Houston?" Oh, that's hilarious.
We should
Um,
be.
we
I
should
am.
be, we should be, Lance. I flew through
Actually,
Houston this past week.
I wore my Houston shirt because Gloria's a Houston girl by by
That is
origin.
right. That's right. First of all, Sikkim Bears, and also,
See, you lost me there.
the Woodlands. Well, the Woodlands. Shout out to the Woodlands High School. All my Highlanders watching and tuning in from the Houston, Texas area, and of course, we got the Houston Astros shirt over there. So what else? We got our Houston Texans. All right, we got some hearts. We got some people from Houston in the house. H Town in the house. I love it. I love it. We're gonna have to do a live show next time I pop over to Houston, or if Matt is here, definitely. I'm excited about doing some live shows this year, actually.
Yeah.
But what were we talking about? So we got distracted
I don't
by
know. Lance the troublemaker.
Lance the troublemaker. So, folks, if you are live, make sure you give us some hearts, make sure you give us some likes, share, and subscribe. We're having a fun Friday fireside chat conversation. Corner conversation with Mr. Matt Graves, Construction Yeti. And now I remember where we were. We were talking about why your trade is construction management. That's what I was shifting to. Of all the things you could have picked, you've got the perfect twang for the field. You're already have experience working in the field. You started working in the field with your dad at the age of 16. What made you want to do the construction management side of things, which is more of a hybrid role, and a leadership role, which is a very stressful position to be in? I feel like the construction manager and the project manager gets the heat from both sides of the aisle, and takes on a lot of responsibilities. So, what made you move on over from the field to this hybrid position?
Well, I went to college and did civil engineering, thinking I was gonna be a home builder at first,
Right.
and I realized like that wasn't gonna work. And I got halfway through engineering school, and I was like, I do not want to be an engineer. Screw this. And so
Mhm.
I was looking at transferring out to something different, and then you could specialize. Like you specialize in structures, geotech, or transportation, or you specialize in like construction project management. And so like,
Mhm.
oh, that sounds cool. I'll do that. You're still like 20, 21 years old, not don't know anything about the world, right? And so
Right.
I went that path, and then I graduated. I was in school during the recession, and I graduated in 2010, and no one was hiring. It was still tough to get a job, in 2010. And
Yeah, I
so
remember that. I remember that.
it was, I ended up landing with a company doing like security barriers because the federal government was still spending money. Um, and so I got a company job doing security barriers for like federal, military bases, federal buildings, and that sort of stuff. And I just kind of fell into that, and I became a project manager way too early, because it's a real small company.
Mhm.
And I kind of got promoted and said, here, you're going to run this project now. And I was supposed to have a mentor, but small company, everyone's hair's on fire. So I kind of just had to go on Google and figure out what an RFI meant, figure out what a submittal meant, figure out what, and it kind of suited me. But I saw a lot of people that would come into the company that weren't the figured out type of people. They needed a mentor, they needed help, and
Yeah.
they would just kind of crash and burn. And so that was kind of one of the reasons too I've started a lot of this content and the blog, and because like help out those people that were in my shoes, whatever it was 14 years ago, when I graduated school and didn't know anything, and I was just trying to figure everything out myself.
So if I am the owner of a small company, so I guess I'm talking about myself and other small business owners, although I own a construction management company. But still, even as the owner of a small boutique construction management company, in onboarding new people, what would be a tip that you would give us, for, I guess, training? And where would you like point them? I mean, is there like a Udemy channel or something that, you would recommend if people know what that is? Or, your newsletter obviously is a resource. But if we're trying to build something internally, where would, I guess, I don't, trying to figure out how to word my question. And I hopefully you understand what I'm trying to ask
Yeah.
here.
So if
But
somebody's a new, say, a college graduate, I'm guessing, right? Somebody new to
right.
doesn't know anything.
Doesn't know
And
anything. I'm bringing them on board to join as an APM or a project
mhm.
coordinator. What do you recommend?
I think, I mean, to be honest with you, I haven't found a lot of um, outside resources that
Hmm.
have been like Udemy. Like, I mean, I never went through any of their things, but like, I don't know if there's anything good that I've seen. There's a couple people I found on like LinkedIn who are doing some cool stuff.
Right.
John Farner, like empowering subcontractors. He has this platform where it's a video thing where he's helping project managers.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Jesse does stuff. Kind of
Right.
he does a lot of more field leadership type of thing. He's got cool programs, especially for like foremen. He's got a cool platforms coming out for like helping foremen plan their work. So there's a lot of resources out there. Like Josh, I'm gonna mess up his last name, like Lubker.
Yeah. Yep.
He has a project management crash course, for lack of a better term, where he's putting people through. And so there's some resources out there. You probably got to do a little bit of digging to find them, and I just kind of know these people because I've spent enough time on LinkedIn, I've connected and met a lot of people, right? But I think the best bet's like really to kind of like internally train them on your processes, your procedures, how you do
Right.
business, and have a mentor so that they don't fail. Because if you say, hey, go sit down and watch these 12 YouTube videos or watch these courses, and like now you're a project manager, like how that's going to work out.
Right. No, I asked that question because a lot of people don't have processes and procedures in their businesses. And when I first kicked off, of course, it's just I was the project manager plus like a part-time admin. And then as I grew my business and started to onboard more project managers, even on a per project basis, I found obviously folks come with their own set of experiences, but we do need to have like a company culture,
Yeah.
and even like a training or something, and not make the assumption that everybody knows everything, including myself, right? I find myself learning also from some of the project managers that we bring on board, of course, because, as an owner, that doesn't just necessarily mean that I know everything just because I own the company. And, often I'm hiring people who have professional engineering degrees and, also architects or background in architecture and more education or experience or credentials than I do. But that's how I've leveraged my skill set of bringing new customers and other skill set to like grow the business. And, the processes and procedures, I think, is just to set the tone. I love that you actually pointed to other influencers, if you will, like yourself here on the LinkedIn platform and other platforms, because you're right. We can't learn everything on YouTube. And, there's great resources on even LinkedIn Learning or Udemy or other learning platforms online. But the reality is you can either just like throw yourself in it, and learn it as you go, and then there's, folks that you could follow, like, a couple of
Mhm.
the folks that you've highlighted here and on other platforms, to learn a little bit more about what it is that you want to specialize in. One of my favorite things about last week's show was that some of the folks that I follow on YouTube, when I was first learning about restoration and insulation and, all these different things in the field and different products, actually got to meet in person and talk about wall assemblies and, geek out on a little bit of building science. And these are folks whose YouTube channels I like sit and like watch on Saturday mornings. Just like I used to watch my Saturday morning cartoons and take notes,
That's
and
awesome.
all of that stuff. So, the folks I've gotten the honor of meeting Jesse live, in person in real life. He does exist. He's not just an online troll. I promise. I promise, for the people who are wondering. And Jesse's a great resource. And once you're in Jesse's circle, Jesse is extremely accessible. So, I love that Jesse is always available to problem solve and troubleshoot when needed, and has made himself a virtual mentor with the decades of experience that he has to newer folks in the construction industry, and helping us get the message out there.
So I gotta hijack your conversation real quick. How was Vegas?
Oh man, Vegas was first of all, I'd never been to Vegas. So Vegas was Vegas. It was pretty cool to wake up and see the mountains in the background, and then, the actual like buildings. So that was a nice change of scenery. Um Over sensory on the lights. I can tell you that I left with a migraine every time that I walked through a casino, even if I was just going to a restaurant or an event, because there's the conference, but then there's events all around the conference that people invite you to. And that's really where the networking is happening, is
Mhm.
at these events that you go to. It be, offsite dinners or happy hours or,
Yeah.
what have you. And the networking, I think, was literally the best part of the conference. Yes, I went there to speak, and I spoke on Tuesday, and I was super nervous. My leg was like shaking like this the whole time in the video. But I think we got the point across in the panel, and it was a really good panel and very well received. And Wednesday, we had a happy hour at the Builder Trend booth with the Builder Trend pros. And I am a new influencer. I say influencer because I don't consider myself somebody as an influencer with like very little followers, but a micro influencer with tons of engagement. I got to meet some really cool folks, from like the Build Show and, like Kilowan Construction and a few others that are like huge on social media and other platforms. And that was pretty neat because, again, you have these people that own businesses worth tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And they're right there. They're super accessible and they're really nice folks. And you get to
Mhm.
just talk to them and talk about your business, and they're like, yeah, anything you need, just give us a holler. And as somebody who's only been in business for 5 years and trying to grow this business beyond certain project scope and size, it's really cool to have these folks almost as mentors, moving forward. And so I think that was for me the best part of the conference. Networking at the hotel, breakfast, got to meet a lot of folks just going to the continental breakfast at the hotel, because there were thousands and thousands of people there for the conference, even on the airplane. on the way back to New York. There were still people networking, and I thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool. I mean, that's always, I don't know. I've been to a few conferences, and that's always the coolest part. Like, especially that I was following all your Instagram stories, and like, seeing you can only look at so much floor tile and bathtubs, right? And like that's cool, but it's not that cool. It's the people you meet kind of through the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. So we did, luckily, it's so big. The show is so big. And there's like, think of the Javits Center in New York, or what's the name of the convention center in Houston, downtown, that big
Oh,
one.
Brown.
Yeah, something Brown
Yeah.
Convention Center. I'm gonna butcher it right now. Anyway, think of those convention centers and multiply them by like 6 or 7. This is how big this thing was, and there's like a whole Tesla tunnel. I don't know if you've heard of the Elon Musk Tesla tunnel in Las Vegas.
You ride
Um,
it?
yeah, of course. There's no other way to get from the South Hall to the North Hall in less than 25 minutes, 30 minutes. The walk was horrible. I mean, and it was the first day it was hot. And then the next 2 days it was like a little bit windy. But either way, it was just really fast to take the tunnel
That's so
versus
cool.
it's almost like it was almost like a subway, but made of Teslas. And yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool.
I haven't been to Vegas since they built that thing, and I remember when they built it. I was like, "This is so cool." I remember riding the city bus from the Strip up to Fremont Street, and that was an experience. So
Yeah, so I didn't get to do too much of like Vegas itself. I did go to a couple of landmarks and casinos and things of that nature. And I did hit, 1 or 2 slot machines and a blackjack table. But, it's that the whole purpose of being there was really for the conference itself and, for the responsibilities that we had with the folks that we were meeting there. And so I think we do a lot of commercial. It was a great experience. I think people knock it in the commercial space because it's geared more towards a residential remodeler. But there are a lot of products there that are used for the commercial application, particularly these massive, huge doors from Europe. And I got to see a lot of technology. I got to geek out with a lot of folks in the building materials, which I did the last day so I could like wear sneakers and be chill and just ask as many questions as I wanted to without having to run somewhere else. But I encourage folks, if they're in the construction industry, it doesn't matter what section of the construction industry you're in, I do encourage them to go to these types of conferences and network, meet people, educate themselves. A lot of educational sessions as well, so the meeting rooms were jam-packed with education, which is all continuing ed for certifications and so on and so forth.
That's awesome. That was a good trip.
Yeah, yeah. And now let's get back to you. He hijacked my thing. Looks like I disappeared here. Uh-oh. You're gonna have to take over. You're gonna have to take over the show, I was gonna say.
I keep asking questions.
All right. So this is the only issue with doing things live, folks. And I was actually being interviewed on a different podcast earlier today. And I told them the only issue is like you literally have to keep going. Like you just have to keep it rolling. I had issues with Jesse's show. Every time Jesse shows up, he like screws things up. So
yeah, I know that problem.
Yeah. I remember us talking on a different and I think it might have been Jesse's podcast or Lance's, and you were part of the audience. And I wanted to ask you this question about the different platforms and why we choose certain platforms, right? So there's a very specific audience on LinkedIn. And then there's the Instagram and TikTok. And so some of the content that you post on Instagram or IG may not be the same content that you are posting on LinkedIn or other platforms. So for the people who are a little bit shy about putting content out there because they think that they need to know everything, how would you how would you help them differentiate the audiences and what type of content goes where and why?
Yeah, when I first started, I don't know why I started, but I first started more on LinkedIn. I think it's because I
Okay.
kind of played on there. Like I had an Instagram account. Like I've had Facebook since college, but I don't ever post on Facebook or anything like that, right? But I never really did much on Instagram. But like I started like kind of posting on LinkedIn a little bit more. I just started doing that, and then so when I started the newsletter, I started posting more on there, and I kind of found out kind of like how that ecosystem works, right? Because it's a
Right.
different flavor, it's a different ecosystem everywhere you go.
Mhm.
And so I kind of figured out how that works. And I started networking with more people there and kind of got, say traction, I guess, on that platform. And then I would throw some stuff off on Instagram, but I was like still in the same like mindset, like the LinkedIn mindset on Instagram, and like everything would
Mhm.
just like flop and I get no traction. So then I started actually making like these meme videos, which is kind of like really popped off on Instagram.
Right.
And I've found that like LinkedIn is, I'm talking about like in the construction world, right?
Mhm.
LinkedIn's, more of like the office type people. It's the project managers, the project executives, the directors of operations, the business owners. I'm just talking stereotypically. There's people cross on both sides though, right? But just
Right.
mostly there's more of like the office side.
Right.
Instagram I found to be more of like the field side, like the superintendents, the foremen, the actual guys out there swinging hammers and pouring concrete, that type of
Mhm.
stuff. So you gotta know your audience for one, right? Like I feel like I'm pretty well rounded where I can like walk into an owner's meeting and have a conversation with the owner and speak their language, and then walk
Right.
out in the field and talk to the guys that are hanging pipe and pouring concrete, right? And kind of speak their language. So
Absolutely. That's why you're one of the best project managers because you can speak everybody's language. But that's I think that that's the same experience that I've had on the platforms. And one of the reasons that I wanted to bring this show to LinkedIn was because I would like for more foremen and superintendents and
mhm,
tradesmen and folks to join the LinkedIn community. And, it would also be great if some of the folks that never go out to the field also go to the other platforms and start to engage there. And moreover, bringing the folks from the Instagrams and the TikToks and the Facebooks though to LinkedIn, because I think there's a lot of opportunity, particularly with LinkedIn Learning and conversations like this and other
mhm.
construction um, top voices on the platform that put together uh, conversations like this, and the memes, like I mentioned earlier in the conversation, is a very clever way to talk about things that we need to talk about
Yeah,
that, that typically we don't talk about because it's a fussy subject, right? But they're
well,
relatable, right?
that's what I found is like on LinkedIn, there's a lot more thought leadership, right? There's a lot more of that conversation happening. It's Everyone's afraid to disagree with somebody on LinkedIn, right? I feel like everyone's like, yeah, yeah, agree, type of stuff. And like, if you have a differing opinion, people are just like afraid to even say it on LinkedIn. It's kind of everything rose-colored glasses. Where on Instagram,
Woo.
people want to disagree with you on everything, no matter what. So you got to, if you're, you got to have a little thicker skin, I guess. But I've kind of, when I first started, I was wanting to like post like my podcast clips and like quote smart content on Instagram,
Hmm.
and like, hey, let me, a smart conversation. I say smart. I'm saying smart conversation for like the podcast clips and dumb stuff for the memes, though, right? But like, put the smart stuff over there, and like nobody cared. And so I've almost like, I don't want to say tricked the audience into having a conversation, but like,
Hmm.
in construction, you got to have a sense of humor. Like it can be a stressful, painful, hardworking job, unless if you can laugh about yourself and laugh about the problems, like you're not going to survive. And so what I found on Instagram is I started posting these meme videos, right, kind of poking fun at an issue, and then in the caption, kind of having a little bit of a conversation, and then asking people to contribute, and then we can have like it turns into having like a fruitful conversation about
Hmm.
some actually kind of serious topic, right? Because it was kind of
Absolutely.
poking fun at the issue. And then I've even found I've taken some of the more LinkedIn appropriate videos, I guess, and put them over on LinkedIn. And
Mhm.
it's worked well there too. Kind of the same thing, kind of, catch people's attention with the humor and then poke fun at the issue. And it's funny because like I was talking to somebody the other day and they're like, there's such a niche sense of humor around construction. Like
Yep.
I'll have a video get 2 million views on Instagram, and my wife's like, I don't get it. Like this is stupid. I don't understand it. But like,
Yep.
unless you're not in the industry, like you don't get that.
Humor.
You
Yeah,
don't get
you
that
don't
humor.
get
You don't
and
get
you
the
don't get the
pain.
joke. Yeah, you don't get the joke. You don't get the pain of
Mhm.
whatever the humor is. We've had a couple of reels, videos, whatever, pop off, and it's the same thing. It's like anybody who's not in the construction industry is not going to understand why. There's almost a million people liking and or resharing this thing. We had
Mhm.
one that had more reshares than it had likes. And it was just, I guess, very relatable content.
Yeah, those are always. I've had a few that are like that. And that's it's cool because people just showing their buddies, and if they're showing their buddies, like to me, that's the ultimate, the ultimate success, I guess.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate flex, as the kiddos you know. So wrapping up, the conversation today, I have one final question, and then we can open it up to any Q&A, I guess, that folks have. Or we'll give you back the rest of your afternoon, as corporate says, so that you can go do whatever it is that you want to do. Women in construction. It is Women's Month. It's March 1st,
It is March. Wow.
Yeah, probably would get a ton of heat for not bringing on a woman for the first guest of the month. And I really honestly don't care because I always tell people we need to celebrate the construction industry and people in construction in general all year round, right? But the reality is there's only about 10% of us in construction that make up the construction industry. Of the 10% that make up the construction industry, maybe like 4 or 5%, depending on where you are in the country.
Hmm.
Bigger cities have a higher percentage, smaller cities, maybe a smaller percentage, are women in the field. And that's just traditionally due to the roles that women migrate to. And I don't know, some don't like to get dirty, others do, to each their own. But what would you recommend to men and, particularly men that look like you who make up over 50% of the demographic?
The white middle class male.
Yes, yes, exactly. How would you recommend they support women in construction and moreover, help recruit and promote, elevate females in the industry? Because I feel like it starts with you and it starts with men that look like you, white, middle aged men, and also the boomers who in my case are part of my advisory board, right? Because how on earth am I going to grow a business that I haven't done before without somebody who's done it before? And that's just who it is. So that is my last and final question for the day today.
I'll start by saying like some of the best project managers I've ever been around have been women. Like
Yep.
they seem to be way more. I mean, stereotypical, right? But like, it seem to be way more detailed on stuff or organized on stuff. Like,
Hmm.
and just some of the best project managers I've been around. Honestly, it's not even alive in women, but
Right.
I mean, I think if you're trying to attract a 30-year-old woman to the industry, I think you're too late. I think you need to like really start that messaging early, right? And like I think schools are doing a good job with like these girls STEM programs and stuff,
Hmm.
and introducing girls to the STEM trades or STEM fields, I guess you call it. But showing them that path when they're 12 years old or 14 years old, right? When they're trying to figure out what they want to do with their life. But
Right.
I mean, I know this is kind of your second career coming into construction, right? But
Yep, it is.
that's like, I think that's a very uphill battle, right? Like there's never going to be any, I'm talking about real success across the nation, across the industry, right? Of trying to like have people come do second careers into construction, right? But I think if you can show them early, like in high school and stuff, like when they're getting
I
into
agree.
college, So I think more emphasis, and I don't do a good job with it. Like I'm not involved in any of those programs personally, but I think that's where it's got to start. I mean, I think it's got to start that way for everybody, really, right? And that's just kind of, I think, boys in high school, the males, like they see that path too, right? Because maybe their parents, like I said, I work for my dad. I didn't work for my mom in construction, right? So you kind of see that path, right? And
Right.
so I think that's where it's got to start.
Yeah, I think that, and I appreciate your answer because I think that people always want to make a big deal about DEI. And while it's extremely important, and, me being a Latina, minority woman in the industry, very proud to be so, but I, that's not my only label. I'm also just a good construction manager. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
good drywaller. I'm a good carpenter. I'm a good site superintendent. I'm a good safety supervisor. And these are all the roles that I've played in the construction industry. And so having always wanted credit and kudos for my skill set and not for what I look like or some check or tick box. It took me a really long time to get certified as a minority owned business. But I do recognize that, the set asides and the programs that the
Mm-hmm.
government has set forth can really help propel my business. And so anybody who is interested in the construction industry, we always give a shout out and a plug to the trades and just, recruitment in construction. I agree. We got to start having these conversations with them at a very early age, at home at the age of like 10, 11, 12 is what you mentioned. So I'm always about like, let's start in middle school and bring some of these shop classes back to school.
Mm-hmm.
Your dad was in the trades, so you were exposed to it at a young age. But not everybody has that, right?
Right.
Like, what if your dad's a lawyer or a doctor? How do you get exposed to the trades? Without it being in school or a program or an option in school. So, very much like they expose us to technology and coding. I don't know if you had to learn how to code when you were in school, but I did. It was one of the classes that was like shoved in our face. We just need to bring these classes back to the schools. To piggyback on that question, I just thought of something because you are a dad also. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I feel like some of the education also starts at home. So as a parent, we all want the best for our children, right? What tips or tricks do you have for parents to not talk down the trades or construction? It is a viable option. We all know that people can make six figures, multiple six figures, millions of dollars, some billions of dollars in the construction industry. Unfortunately, construction's always been a second option for most people because they think that construction is just for dumb people or for a dirty job. They don't realize that there's all these white collar jobs in construction, like construction project managers, engineers, and so forth. So, what recommendations do you have for parents or for, people in general to like educate themselves on opportunities out there for their children? Because I feel like a lot of times the children don't even look at it as a viable option just because of what their parents might think or because of what they've overheard their parents say about the traditional construction worker.
I think for one, I mean, if you're in construction, the hard work that goes into it and the benefits that they can get out of it, right? Like, I'm in electricians that make like 1.5 times as much money as I do, right? And like,
Right,
and like,
right,
there's
right.
money to be made. And so
Absolutely.
if you're in the industry, you get it. It's the people that aren't in the industry that are, kind of keeping the people, may speak down on like, the dirty construction worker or something right there, right? But like, I think they kind of need to educate themselves first and understand that like, oh no, this is actually a real career path.
Hmm.
I mean, it's not exactly our grandpa's construction industry anymore, right? I mean, with the technology and the tools and everything else they're doing, there's a lot of innovation happening today. And I mean, even if you want to be a programmer or something like that, I mean, there's a career path in the construction industry. Like construction industry is just so massive when you look at I mean, obviously there's the guys pouring concrete and swinging hammers, but then there's, all the construction technology tools out there. There's, I mean, your schedulers. I mean, you can like be a, construction scheduler, and like that's some sort of program, I guess, to almost, but there's just so many avenues you can get into, in the industry. So I think just if you're not in the industry, I imagine literally everyone listening to an Everything Construction Corner podcast is in the industry. But
Right.
maybe if you get people that aren't, just kind of help them see that it's not just the old, of course there is some of that dirty, hardworking, backbreaking labor still happening today, but there's a lot more to it as well.
Yeah, there really is. Well, I thank you for your time. We're very respectful of people's time. It is Friday, and for some, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Others got to go, pick up their kiddos at school, and or start wrapping up things in the field. Or if we've got some West Coast folks, so they got to get back from lunch.
Get back to work, Lance.
Get back to work, Lance. And everybody else in the West Coast. So, I want to make sure that we're respectful of your time. Where can the people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Matt Graves, and I think it's CCM. And so there's a bunch of Matt Graves. So look me up there. Instagram, if you like memes, it's Construction Yeti on Instagram. The newsletter and podcast lives on Substack at constructionyeti.substack.com. And so I'm kind of all over the internet a little bit.
Yeah, so he's pretty much Construction Yeti on all platforms, even on LinkedIn. If you go on the search tab and type Construction Yeti, his content will start to pop up and you can find him. So, but we will make sure that the social media team also adds all these links, or as many of these links, in the show notes. And folks, if you are catching the replay and responding along to the comments that are here live today from Lance and Elizabeth, and we had Jesse on, we had Carol on. And so if you're following along in the comments, please make sure that you hit hashtag replay and also engage in the conversation. If you enjoyed today's topic, please make sure that you share it and share the video. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook. So if you're not on LinkedIn because you think it's just for white collar resumes, no problem. You can also go on YouTube and share this with your friends and family. Thank you so much, Matt, for being here. Carol is going to be our guest for next week. And yes, I said next week. So it being Women's Month, I wanted to highlight some incredible women in construction. And I could not find a better woman to kick off with than Carol. So we are going to come on for a special pop-up show on Saturday, March 8th with Carol Del Vecchio. And if you follow her on LinkedIn, you know that she is an educator and teaches little elementary kids how to do welding, okay, and so many other things in the construction industry. So I am super excited to bring Carol on. I will also be coming on the following Friday with more guests and have a special pop-up show every other Saturday, or as many Saturdays as women want to join on, 9:30 a.m. During Women's Month, so that we can highlight awesome women in the construction industry. Of course, make sure that you also join the Everything Construction Club here, or group here on LinkedIn, where I reshare a lot of the content. Lance has his newsletter as well, where he reshares a lot of our content. And Matt, if you do not subscribe to Matt's newsletter and you have enjoyed today's show, you want a little bit more of Matt Graves, make sure that you not just follow him on the platforms, but subscribe to his newsletter. Thank you, Matt, for being here. Really appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream now. And yeah, we will catch you guys on the next one. Don't leave.
Thanks, Lori.
Thanks.